Hello and welcome to the Fish Nerds, the show about fish, fishing, and eating fish. I'm Clay Groves, Chief Executive Fish Nerd of the podcast and Licensed Fishing Guide, and your host. Today on the show, I'm super excited. We have a special guest who I'll tell you about in a minute. We also have Fish Guy Josh and Doc Martin here with Fish of the Day. We're going to do some news. We're going to play Stump the Fish Nerds, but I'm going to jump in with the guest here because he's sitting at a bar in Lansing, Michigan. He looks as beautiful as ever. He's young, he's handsome, all the things you want from a podcast guest. So we're super lucky to have one of my favorite songwriters ever, and that's not a joke. Someone who can sing with a raspy or out-of-tune voice better than Lou Reed and Bob Dylan combined. Someone who is deeper and darker than even Morrissey himself. Someone who would have killed a lot of animals if Ted Nugent hadn't beaten him to it. Someone who I have been listening to and have been inspired by for years. Someone who loves music, science, and comedy, total nerd, and most interestingly, the author of the biggest book ever written on mollusk humor, 101 oyster jokes, Mr. Wally Pleasant. Wally, welcome to the podcast.
Oh, thank you, Clay. I want to let you know, actually, there's 104, but 101 sounded better, so I just went with that.
It sells more, yeah. And I actually read a lot of that book today. It's awful.
Yeah. The whole idea behind that was I was trying to see how Amazon publishing kind of worked, because I was thinking if I ever wrote anything that was good, then I might maybe put it on there. But I had this 101 oyster jokes. I was for years I would suffer from insomnia, and I would just think of oyster jokes as a way to kind of my counting sheep kind of thing.
That's the best thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, so then I ended up with 101, and then you got the book right there. And I thought, well, let's load it on there and let's see how it works. And as a result, I get probably every quarter, I would estimate about $2.14.
Well, I bought my copy today, so I'm very pleased, and I know at least one other person who's buying one. And let me read some reviews of your book, because these are really tremendous. I like them. This book is exactly long enough for me to go to the bathroom and finish while wiping. Bravo, Mr. Pleasant. That's very nice. When they bring out the shrimp ring at your next holiday party, you'll know exactly which joke to tell. Number 64, number 70, and 102. Crab dip, joke number 46. You will laugh and groan, and then laugh some more. Goofy, funny, in the I can't believe I'm laughing so hard at this kind of way. Another Wally Pleasant masterpiece. And one of the best oyster joke compendiums I've ever read. The book America needs to get through some very tough times. So really nice reviews. Well done.
Yeah, I actually wrote those. So yeah.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
You write your own reviews?
I was going to the thesaurus trying to figure out what compendium meant, and I ended up doing that. Yep. Well,
nicely done. So you can write your own reviews on Amazon. I was so proud of someone else writing them for you.
It's and I'm really excited that my chart's gonna spike through the roof, because you bought one, and then you said somebody else might buy one.
I'm pretty sure one of our callers who's a big fan is gonna buy one. In fact, before I get into talking about your Kickstarter project, which I want to get to, I want to play for you a couple of phone calls that came in when they heard you're going to be on the show. Believe it or not, my listeners actually are also, some of them are your fans as well.
Wow, we're like cross-marketing here.
It's by one of them I've known for years, and the other one is just by pure coincidence. So
I love your. I can actually see where you're at, because we're in a video conference, and it looks very comfortable.
I'm just in my guest room, with big signs behind me here.
Yeah.
So.
Hello, this is a message for Wally Pleasant. This is Clay's old friend Donald calling. I'm sure Clay is too nice to bring up the fact that back when he broke up with his first girlfriend, we used to play That's Evolution for him all the time. To cheer him up. Well, mostly it just cheered us up. But my question for you, Wally, is when are you going to do some songs about fishing? It seems a natural subject. Thank you. Bye.
So in case it was hard to hear, that was my friend Dono from New Jersey. He went to Stockton State College, which is where he met you years ago. Wanted to know, first of all, he was making fun of me for not having a girlfriend a lot when I was younger. But he also wanted to know when you're going to start writing songs about fish.
Okay,
Seems natural.
well, first of all, friends are so mean.
Terrible.
I have this thing where I write songs for special occasions for people. So
Mhm.
this guy wanted me to write a song for his friend that he's known for a really long time, and he was just focusing on all these negative things about him that he wants to write about how he has diabetes and he's going to have his
God.
foot chopped off eventually, and it was just friends are cruel.
They
Goodness.
are. That's why we like them. They keep
Yeah.
us honest.
Right. I actually, when I was first started trying to write songs, I wrote a song about fishing, and I don't remember it very well, but I think I might have to bust that out of the archives, revamp it a little bit, and get it to you, or just start anew.
Start a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that was Dono. He actually is the person who introduced me to your music years ago. So that's why we're here today, because of him. I went to high school with him and hung out with him when he was in college. All right, so another caller just called in this morning, and this is actually a person who's a true fan of the show who I didn't know for years, and he knows you just because of your music.
Hi, Clay. This is Ryan Dubé calling in. Happy to talk to you. I understand you have the one and only Wally Pleasant on the podcast tonight. And I listened to Wally Pleasant well over 20 years ago when I was a DJ at a college radio station. And he had a song, Hardcore Man, that I always thought had to be about Henry Rollins. But I never knew, and that was 20 years ago, before the age of the internet, and I never got the answer. So is Hardcore Man about Henry Rollins? Love the show.
Okay, so that's Ryan Dubé, and he wanted to know, is Hardcore Man about Henry Rollins?
Yes, that is one of my many biographical songs, and I got Ty Cobb and Ted Nugent, and yes, Hardcore Man is about Henry Rollins. Yeah, he was. I think it's been a while since I listened to that, but I should bust it out again. Maybe rework some, update it or something.
Yeah, because you get Henry Rollins now in a wheelchair or like in convalescent center. He's old now, so he's going to be less hardcore.
He's less angry.
Yeah, someone's getting him a hug somewhere. So, all right. Hey, so you've got, the reason I found you this morning is I noticed that you have a Kickstarter campaign starting up for a new album you want to put out. First album in somewhere near 14 years.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about that a little bit.
In the background.
I know. Hooray for new Wally Pleasant records. So let's talk a little bit about your Kickstarter campaign. First of all, why are you making a record after so long? Are you just coming out of retirement? Did you run out of money? What's going on?
Wow, that's a good question. I'd been writing songs for a long time, but I hadn't kind of figured out how to release stuff. It used to be just record something and make a CD, and that obviously changed. And I decided, let's actually, get some of these songs that I've written out. And I thought that the Kickstarter would be a good option. It enables me to do some things that I wouldn't otherwise do, like with a vinyl release, which is I understand is it's a warmer sound. It's more the analog sound, and I get to do that, and just looking forward to. I probably have enough for a couple albums. So if this works out, might work on something else in the future too.
Well, why not? I noticed that like today did it launch today or launch a couple days ago?
It launched last night, and
Yeah, and you've already got a ton of people giving you money. Dono, who called in, he put $50 on the table. I paid my $15, so there's two fish nerds already supporting you, right? Because Dono wants the vinyl. Yeah, well, he's from.
Oh, nice.
Dono is from. He's in North Carolina now, but yeah. So you're going to have hopefully some more people doing it. I'll put links up at fishnerds.com so people can link up to it and support you and get a copy of your record. What kind of beer are you drinking? I just saw a beer come across the screen.
Oh, you're going to laugh at me. I went with the special. I don't even want to talk about what beer I'm drinking.
Come on.
Okay, it's the 22-ounce Bud Light that was on the race board.
I'm so sad.
The mystique is gone.
Oh, so I was hoping you were going to give me some like IPA or some sort of like, craft beer.
Oh, I know. Michigan is the best independent beer state too. We have
Is
Bell's. Yeah, we have really a ton of great breweries here. But I just wasn't feeling it. I just decided, well, how about something light and watery? That'll be a nice way to end my day.
Perfect. Hey, speaking of light and watery, I'm going to play a song, my favorite song from one of your first albums I've ever heard. And I was a science teacher for a while, and when I was teaching science, I would introduce my unit on evolution by playing That's Evolution, one of my favorite songs you ever wrote. And so I'm going to play that right now.
Well, I know a guy and he's always complaining 'cause he doesn't have a girlfriend. So I decided that I should explain to him why I think he has this problem. I said the reason you're alone has nothing to do with anything specific. In fact, I think it's more scientific. You see, the characteristics that you portray make women want to run away. And though I can offer you no solution, I think it's got something to do with evolution. And that's evolution. That's evolution. That's evolution. Oh, right now. Well, there's nothing you can do about natural selection, so don't get so distressed over a barroom rejection. Though I know you're in a very lonely situation, at least you're saving a lot of hassle for the next generation. And Charles Darwin put it best after he observed a penguin's nest. Oh, John Scopes and Clarence Darrow showed the American mind was a little too narrow. And that's evolution. That's evolution. That's evolution. Jesse Pickerel, why don't you just take it away? Just to be cool, because it might have adverse effects on your gene pool. And I've noticed those of us who are more physically attractive are also likely to be sexually active. And that, my friend, is evolution. And that's evolution. That's evolution. That's evolution. I got one more groovy little verse for you. Well, we started out as apes, and that's not all, 'cause then we progressed to the Neanderthal. And then the human beings began their reign, and in 1,000 years we'll all look the same. And that's evolution. That's evolution. That's evolution. I'm gonna say it again, even though I've said it about 24 times now. That's evolution when you're all by yourself. And that's evolution when you're too much of a loser to find someone else. And that's evolution when you can't get a date. And that's evolution, and it exists so you won't mate. Now I hope that you've listened to what I've had to say, because without evolution we wouldn't be here today. Sha-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la-la.
All right, and we're back. Wally's taking a drink of his beer, getting ready for his big fish story. Fish story. All right, so we're back, Wally. Thank you for all the music you've made. So you fish a little bit, not a lot,
I do,
but
there's I'm a catch and release guy.
Mm-hmm.
Catch bluegill and bass, and Michigan is a great state for fishing. Last year, I went on a chartered boat on Lake Huron, and we caught a walleye and about 3 or 4 steelhead. Steelhead, oh my God, that is amazing eating fish.
I thought so just a minute ago you were catch and release. Now you're killing them.
Oh yeah, I kind of like gave you a mixed message there.
Yeah,
but I didn't do it. I know that I don't necessarily want to be there when it happens. So the dudes on the chartered fishing boat did that for me.
It's funny because I'm a charter now. I run a fishing service, and I also I like eating fish and don't like the part about killing them. I wish my clients would kill them and fillet them for me. and save me that effort. Yeah, it's awful.
It's all about how you phrase it. You know, do you like killing things? and I don't know. You might end up with a weird clientele that way, though.
We always end up with weird clientele. We're dealing with the public, so they're always going to be weird. So, steelhead. Tell me more about steelhead. Like, were they hard to catch? What were your techniques? Anything?
Well, it was a chartered boat, so they just pretty much have all the poles on the side, and then you don't do anything. You just sit there and try not to get sick. It was a real choppy day, and they pull them out and they drained the blood and they did everything. And but I guess I didn't realize this until that day. But all a steelhead is a trout that has gotten out of the river system, and when it gets in the Great Lakes, it gets really big and kind of salmon-like. Yeah,
it's a rainbow trout biologically, and same fish. Yeah, and then out in Washington State and in some of the rivers on the East Coast, if they're sea run, they're steelheads. If they're in a pond or a river all the time, they're rainbow trout. Same thing. But yeah, exactly the same fish. And I've never caught a steelhead, but I've caught lots of rainbow trout. So I guess I've caught one, but don't know. And now, when you're fishing, what kind of music do you listen to?
There was no music at the chartered fishing boat. I actually have never listened to music while I was fishing. That's a great idea, though. I think I should maybe do that. And we were talking about preparing fish earlier, and we did a cedar plank with kind of like a teriyaki kind of thing on a grill with the steelhead. That worked pretty well. How do you generally prepare the trout that you catch?
I think trout taste disgusting. I can't figure out why you want to eat them. I don't like them. The best recipe I ever read for it was trout wrapped in bacon, and you take the trout, wrap it in bacon, and you sear it in butter, and then you peel the bacon off, eat the bacon, and throw the trout in the trash. That was the best recipe I've ever read. So, just gross.
It's awesome.
Yeah. I don't like eating trout. I love catching them, but I don't like to eat them. So I mean,
not a lot of people have that opinion about trout, but that's interesting.
Well, a few years ago, I went on a quest to catch and eat every kind of fish in the state of New Hampshire, and I caught all of them, and I figured out trout are the least tasty of all the fish, and I kind of lost interest. Yeah.
What was carp included in that?
Yeah, carp are really delicious. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, they're totally good eaters. Yeah.
You got to take the mud vein out. Is that what it's called?
Just mud vein, yeah. And you got to be okay with lots of mercury and a little brain damage on the side. It's nice.
Yeah, that was the name of my grunge band from the '90s, Mud Vein.
Well, that's a great name.
No, actually, I wish, but no.
If only you thought of that, then you would have been the perfect alternatine. You would have fit right in. So. That's really funny. Mud vein's great. Yeah, no, carp are super good, and they are brought to this country as a forage fish, as food, and it never caught on.
Wow.
Yeah, because they're from Asia.
It's like the opposite of lobster, which were like the garbage food, back in the 1700s, and then took off as a fancy pants food.
I just think it needs marketing. It needs a song about it or something to make people want to eat it.
It's carp.
But carp sounds terrible just with the name by itself. It has that kind of hard end to it. So
yeah,
what rhymes with carp?
Sounds like barf.
It does. It has an R sound in the middle. So maybe it's a pirate food. Carp. I don't know. There's gonna be something you can do with that.
How about? I'm also real fond of perch and walleye.
Yes.
Very mild taste.
Yeah, with walleye, the best cut of the walleye is the walleye cheeks. Have you eaten the cheeks out of the walleye?
That's what I've heard. That's what the guy in the chartered fishing boat was telling me.
Yep. Well, they might be saying that just to watch you do it, or they might be true. There's two different kinds of charter captains.
So you shouldn't eat the eyes then?
Some say you should. I don't know. I've never done it. I'm not that adventurous, so I get a little nervous. There's some parts of the fish I'm okay with not eating. So eyes and lips. Lips are kind of weird too.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm having a great time just talking about fishing. I need to. I'm gonna listen to the show from now on. It's actually a really interesting subject and done very well.
Well, thank you.
News, fish in the news. Everybody loves their fish in the news.
I love Fish in the News.
The band is called Diana's Bath Salts, and they're just terrific local band here in North Conway, New Hampshire.
What genre is it? Like
they play mostly 90s alternative music. So, like Nirvana and Weezer. And
well, Mudvayne could open for them.
Mudvayne would be a great opening act. Yeah, my band in the 90s was called the Flytraps, and none of us could play a single instrument, so we didn't get very far. Because we thought you could just pick up a guitar and make noise on it and sing, and it turns out you actually have no chords, and never worked out for us.
Well, that was interesting. That could have been a selling point, something different.
Hey, wouldn't it be a big stretch? Nirvana wasn't that good, so why not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right, so Fish in the News. First up, this is from the New York Times, so you know it's legit. And the headline is Cosmetic Surgery for a Pet Fish in Asia. This one is King of the Tank. And so apparently in Singapore, raising fish is a status symbol. So Eugene, and the last name is spelled NG. There's no vowels in it. So Eugene Ng jabbed a pudgy finger against the side of this glass tank like a predator singling out his unlucky target. That fish's eye is looking a little droopy, said Mr. Ng, pointing to the fish's eye. Minutes later, the fish was knocked out, and he got an eye lift, a procedure that has become standard practice in the premier cosmetic surgeon agent's arowana fish in Singapore. So these fish, this specific species of fish, their value ranges from like $3,000 to $20,000. And people who have them, they have them as a status symbol. So if you have this fish, it means you're from a wealthy family, you've got value. But how the fish look is very important. So his fish had these droopy eyes, and it got a facelift to make the eye back in place. Now, the funny thing about this story, well, there's a lot of funny things about this story, is the doctor says, I know some people think it's cruel to the fish, but really I'm doing it a favor because now the fish looks better and its owner will love them even more. So what they're doing for the fish is giving them a facelift so their owner will become more attracted to them and the fish's self-esteem will be improved. That's what the doctor is saying there.
Wow. Yeah,
and that's a real story. That's a real thing.
That is insane. I mean, I would probably want my fish to have like I don't know, instead of an eye lift, maybe like a cat pelt.
Oh, that would be.
Yeah, like something totally off the charts, kind of.
Well, the cat pelt's a great idea because, like, imagine you're a fish, right? A cat would eat a fish, but now you're wearing the cat. You want to intimidate your other fish friends, that cat pelt would be where it's at. Now, what would you pay for a fishy eye lift, do you think?
Oh, man. I was just thinking about that. I'd say $200.
Only $90 for the eye lift.
Oh, wow.
For a fish that could be worth $300,000, $90 for, look, if you got a $300,000 fish, the eye lift is worth the money. How about a chin job? You want to get that chin of that fish just right? What do you think you'd pay for that?
Oh, like a fish Botox kind of thing?
Exactly.
Oh, I'd say, well, since the first one was 90, I'm going to say 110.
$60. So what a bargain. What a bargain. Yeah, so now in this communist country, it's hard to have a lot of money. So that you have to be part of like the royal family to be doing this, but they're totally doing it. They're also doing it to arowana is the fish in the picture, and we'll have pictures at fishnerds.com. But they're also doing it to stingrays and any other species of fish that looks a little bit funky. Just knock them out, give them a facelift.
If I was a fish plastic surgeon, I would. I was thinking I could maybe take the fish and say I was going to do the plastic surgery and get your money, but then just switch it with another fish that's a better looking fish.
Just lie.
Yeah, and then they never know.
No, because and you can keep the fish, the other one, and then the other fish you took, you can give to somebody else who wants a droopy-eyed fish.
Right.
So you just have this kind of like it's like this big shell game.
Or I could just have a whole armada of ugly fish.
I have the ugliest fish collection there is.
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's perfect. So anyway, that's real news, man. Like that's the kind of stuff we're talking about in the world these days, and I think in our modern times, we're worried about world peace and violence in the world. Fish surgery is definitely the story we should be discussing.
I know. I'm glad we're sorting this out too and getting to the bottom of it.
Yeah. Hey, speaking of getting to the bottom of things, from sciencemag.org is our next story, and headline here is, "This robo-fish is so realistic it can film fish without frightening them." So scientists have created a new robot fish, and they've been working on robot fishes for years. They used to look like really clunky and like very Wizard of Oz robots, and those robots would scare other fish. Finally, they've made a robot fish that swims like a real fish. It doesn't scare other fish, and now they can use that to study things. Now, what I'm worried about is what's going to happen when this real-looking fish gets eaten by another real fish. So, who are you waving at?
Oh, I'm waving at my friend Jen. She's playing music tonight. Everybody's been walking by and being like, "Why does Wally have ear things in, and what's going on with this?" And we know he's weird, but why is he being extra weird tonight?
Right, on open mic night, you should be singing. Here you are chatting on your earbuds.
It's worked out great. And we were talking about the fish.
Mm-hmm.
So you said they've been working on it for a long. Now who is this they?
That's a really good question. So let me read part of the article here. So the company is called SoFi, for soft robotic fish. Step up from previous generations of robotic fish because it can be maneuvered up and down to depth of 18 meters. There's a fisheye camera, of course, fisheye lens camera, where its mouth would be perfectly positioned to capture the action up ahead. And the robot doesn't just look like a fish; it also moves like one, undulating its tail to propel itself. I can't read anymore. Propel itself through water. Scientists at SoFi took 6 test runs in coral reefs in Fiji to test this thing out and make sure it works. Now, when I say they've been working on it, lots of different companies have been making robofish over the years, and they all look very strange. And there's even a company, Wally, you like this. There's a company that takes a little robot you stick in dead fish, and it makes the dead fish look alive. And it's actually a bait people use for fishing called zombait, unrelated to this company. Yeah, but it's like if you're using a dead mullet for bait, you put a robot inside the dead mullet and drop it in the water, and you drive it like a robot, and it catches you bigger fish.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
so you can actually control the fish movement, the bait movement, a little better because it's got a robot in it.
A little bit, yeah. So, although, have you ever snorkeled before?
Yeah, I did in Hawaii. It was gorgeous.
Did you find the fish to be that afraid of you?
Well, interesting story. We went out to this place. It was off of Maui, and it was this crescent moon-shaped kind of island thing. And we were out there, and I kind of went away from the group, and I was snorkeling around, and all of a sudden there was these dead fish that were falling down in front of me, and I looked up, and there was a rowboat, and they were throwing dead fish out of the rowboat, and they're coming down. And then I looked down, and there were barracuda eating the dead fish. So I thought, well, I should probably go somewhere else.
You were in the water snorkeling when this was happening?
Yeah, I was in the water, and then there was a boat above me that was throwing dead fish, and there was barracuda underneath me, and but they
so you were
robots.
Between the bait and the fish.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a good.
They were kind of far away. I mean, they were probably maybe 10, 20 feet below me, but still,
that's amazing.
It was a good time to move for sure.
It is a good time. Now, fish, I found that when I'm snorkeling, fish aren't that afraid of me. So, I wonder how scary does robot fish have to be to really scare a fish?
Right? It would probably looks like Dory. It's probably just a toy Dory from
yes, swimming around going, hello, fishies. Yeah.
Huge eyes. Yeah. That would scare him, I bet.
It scares me.
Keep swimming.
Swim away. All right, so that's news. Let's take a little break, and we're going to jump in with Fish of the Day. We have Fish Guy Josh and Doc Martin got together to talk about bass. So here's a little little fishy information about the spotted bass.
Hey, I need 2 seafood platters and a fish of the day.
A what?
A fish of the day!
All right, fish nerds, welcome back. And by the sound of the busy restaurant and the seafood orders, you know that it is time for another episode of Fish of the Day with our good friend, Doc Martin. Hello.
Hey, everybody. And this time that you hear me, I'm going to do a lot less cursing than the last time that you heard me on the Fish Nerds.
Hey, I'm not judging.
It was all in fun, right?
Of course. Well, Doc, let's just dive right in today. Today we're doing a fish that I requested because it is a fish that I have recently been targeting on my trips home to San Diego when I go to visit. And that is the spotted bay bass or spotted sand bass. So what'd you find for me?
Sure. So first, just in general, this fish is really abundant. It's not imperiled or anything. It's a pretty popular fish. A lot of you, if you go and Google it, you would probably recognize it if you've been out on the West Coast or in Mexico, anywhere out there. But I was very surprised with the actual peer-reviewed scientific literature. There's really not a whole lot. So that was pretty shocking to me for something so kind of, I think, maybe popular. It's a sport fish. It's certainly there, reef associated with other things, but there's really not a whole lot of actual research done with it. So
Interesting.
Thought I'd have to start with that little tidbit.
Did you find much about any kind of time period of decreased numbers? From the little bit of reading I do mostly on fishing websites and stuff like that? I know typically nowadays a lot of people do catch and release on them because I guess a lot of the fishermen claim that they're sort of vulnerable to population declines because they're only really found in the bays and harbors along the coast. You don't find them much out in the actual ocean. And I'm curious if you kind of confirmed that or found something different.
So in general, all the IUCN and literature that I read, there doesn't seem to be any particular concern about these guys. Mm-hmm. However, there's also not a lot of actual research looking at these population dynamics. The one study that I ran across talked about how even though they're kind of along that West Coast area, there are different populations that are distinct, and that raises a few red flags just for me personally. So if they are not one huge big intermixing population and you have these smaller little populations, those tend to be probably a little bit more vulnerable to fishing pressures than if they were all intermixed and everything. So, but I can neither confirm nor deny that statement.
I mean, that makes sense to me just because I've hit up a few different areas for them, and places like San Diego Bay, which is huge, has a pretty healthy population, and then there's a small area a little further north called Dana Point Harbor, and it's really tiny, so I could assume that the spotteds in there probably are a little more susceptible. But yeah, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah. So speaking of spotted sand bass and some interesting stuff about it, you know how much I love etymology, right?
I do.
So I think everybody does. It's not a secret anymore. So the scientific name for the spotted sand bass is Paralabrix. So that's the genus, and it comes from Greek. So para means the side, and then the end, that labrix, is basically a fish. So it's the side of a fish.
Side of a fish.
And there you go.
Sounds exciting.
And then that's very exciting. Well, very astute observation, I think. And then the species name is Maculato fasciatus, so it's kind of a mouthful, but that mostly comes from Latin. So the maculato means stained or spotted, and then the last part, the fasciatus, means bundled or banded. So basically the side of this fish, I assume, is probably spotted or banded based just on the name alone. How do you feel about that?
That hits the nail right on the head. They are spotted with sort of faint bands underneath the spotting. So that's right on the money. And I will say part of the reason I, as we were discussing before the recording, that this is a fish where, I didn't fish much in San Diego when I first moved there, and I was really more into different water sports like surfing and scuba and stuff. And now that I moved up to the Bay Area where some of that's a little more limited and I've been getting back into fishing, this is a species I've been targeting. But one of the reasons I targeted it is just, man, it is a cool looking fish. It just looks amazing.
Yeah, I saw some pictures of it. It's really, really pretty. But I'm also biased because I kind of think most fish are really pretty.
Well, of course.
And I was wondering, have you had any success catching these in general?
I've only been out a few times, kind of in the worst part of the year to do it, and I have not, but I went out with a buddy, and he nailed a really nice size spotted bass. It was his personal best, and I was pretty excited that he nailed it. Although on a side note, I did instead, last time I went down, I tried to fish for it, and I didn't have any luck, but I reeled in the biggest specklefin midshipman I've ever seen. And when I did the research, it actually ended up being near like the max size they've ever been recorded. And I was pretty excited about that. But unfortunately, no spotted bass yet. But when I go back for Comic-Con in July, it is on my list, and I am catching one of those things.
So you're going to go not only to Comic-Con, but with an ulterior motive of catching spotted sand bass.
Not only am I going to do both of those activities,
very nerdy,
because I will be doing, we're going to take our spearfishing gear. Typically we rent a car or fly down when we go to San Diego, but this is sort of our long vacation, and so we drive down so we can take all the spearfishing gear, all the wetsuits, etc. But not only am I doing those two activities while I'm down there, I have a travel rod and reel that fits in my backpack, and Comic-Con is right on the water on the bay in San Diego. So I will be attending Comic-Con, then walking out the building and fishing off the docks, because that's one of the ideal habitats for catching these fish. So I will be nerding it up.
That is
from
so
the
nerdy.
Comic aspect, and then I will be the total nerd and bust out my collapsible fishing pole to go catch fish while I wait for the next nerdy event at Comic-Con.
So I'm going to ask a question that I know the entire Fish Nerd Nation needs an answer to, is what are you going to dress up as? And please tell me you're going to keep that outfit on as you go fishing.
So typically I don't do costumes when I go, but what I do is I have aquatic nerd themed t-shirts that I wear every day. So I have like an Aquaman, an Aqualad, the Sea Lab 2021 cartoon, things like that. However, my boss, as a gift for Christmas, gave me a red beanie, like the Life Aquatic movie.
A huge fan.
Yes, one of my favorite movies, of course. And I have always had and worn with pride at Comic-Con my Team Zissou intern shirt, like the interns wore in the movies. And so now that I have the hat, I will go on Saturdays, typically the major day for costumes. So I will dress up as a Team Zissou intern that day, and we'll try and plan to go fishing and have someone take my photo.
That's the best answer I could have ever hoped for. I wonder if one day you could dress up as Zissou, and then the next day, the other best fish nerd outfit, you should obviously dress up as Clay, right?
I could do a Comic-Con Clay day. That could be interesting.
It'd be a very small subset of people that would get that one. Oh, goodness. Okay, I digress.
We digress.
Let's get back to the fish here. That's hilarious. I'm going to laugh about that later. Okay, so we have covered a little bit about etymology of the spotted sand bass. They are out on the West Coast where you are, California, Mexico, stuff like that. They are reef associated out there, so they have more of the kind of shallower water, no deeper than about 60 meters, give or take. Yeah. That's about 200 feet. I try really hard to do both metric and non-metric measurements, but I don't always remember. It feeds on small fishes and benthic crustaceans during the day, so I bet that you probably do your fishing for these at some point during the day. And what kind of bait do you use?
They are, one of the reasons they're so popular down there is they're essentially a saltwater version of fishing for largemouth bass. So pretty much anything you use for largemouth, you can try on those guys. Swim baits, jerk baits, grub, stuff like that. And like you said, reef associated, you basically throw toward the structures. A lot of people that have boats will just cruise down the docks in San Diego Bay and just cast at a piling, let it sink, and then they'll usually get it nailed on the drop sometimes, or a slow retrieval. Very much behaves like a largemouth bass.
Oh, very cool. And these guys are also I hate saying like largemouth bass. I want to watch myself a little bit. But they have tolerations of pretty significant temperature fluctuations, which is really neat. So they can get down to like 45 degrees Fahrenheit up to 90. That's 7.5 to 32 Celsius out there. And they can survive some pretty extreme cold intervals. So I assume that they're pretty resilient little critters. So that might be one of the reasons why maybe we're not too concerned about maybe fluctuations in populations, but not concerned about population degradation over time. I
would assume that's probably why they're so well suited for life in like the bay, where we're getting a little more freshwater influx, temperature influx. There's a lot of factors from human activity there that they can withstand a little better than some of the other fish found on the Pacific coast. That would be my guess, at least.
Yeah, it sounds like they're made to tolerate all the nonsense that humans put them through, huh? And also, along with that, they are moderately fast growing, and they only live about 10, maybe to 13 years old. Okay. So they're not long lived. They mature relatively quickly, and that's really great characteristics for a robust species to deal with fishing pressures and environmental changes. So
makes sense.
Yeah. And then so you said your friend caught a pretty big spotted sand bass at some point in the past. Do you remember how big it was?
It was pushing probably 8 inches, no bigger than 10, and I know typically there's a couple other bass in Southern California, sea bass that are similar to spotted sand bass. They're a little bigger. So if I remember correctly, spotted sand bass are kind of on the smaller end of the 3 main bass people fish for, which would be spotted bass, I think barred sand bass, and kelp bass.
Yeah, so these guys get like a really big max size for these guys is about 12 inches. That's about 6 pounds, give or take. So, yeah, it sounds like you guys caught one that's pretty close to about as big as they'll get.
Very cool.
Very cool.
He was pretty excited. Cool. It was a great fish.
Yeah, and speaking of fun great fish. So it's always fun, especially to talk to a wonderful friend like you. We know each other so well. We've never met in real life, so we should obviously talk about reproduction, right? Because that's great. You're welcome for that. Okay, so anyway, these guys are pelagic spawners. So pelagic just means in the water column. And it used to be thought, there was a study done in the past on one subpopulation. If you remember before, I said they are kind of distinct populations. They're not just one huge population. And so originally what happened is someone went out and took a bunch of samples and tried to sex the fish that they caught. And they described them as protogeny. So this is where they change sex from a female to a male.
Oh.
And so that was kind of considered a pretty norm thing. But they've done more and more studies, and they're saying, well, no, maybe it's just gonochorism. And what that means is that there's just one sex. So whatever sex the fish is born with is what they keep forever. And it turns out that it's even more complicated than that. So it depends on the population in which you're studying whether those fish tend to stay the same sex their whole life or if they change as they grow up, which I think is really interesting. And I'm another thing I'm a little disappointed about is that there's not a lot of real research that has set in stone exactly what's going on. So this is all very still tentative.
Yeah.
And
wow, that's really interesting.
I know. And so sex change in fish is not super rare. That is something we've talked about on the show before, with Finding Nemo and how that would have actually gone in real life and all that fun stuff. But it's just interesting that we don't know. We have an idea, but we don't really know for certain. And I think that's something that absolutely needs looked at.
Yeah, especially considering how popular they are.
Mm-hmm, right, exactly. You'd think that there would just be a lot more information written down in some kind of confident way, and that's not the case. So I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, that is cool.
Let's see, I have a couple more little things. Apparently they are relatively secretive, so when you see them out and about, they like to hide from you, and they're not as bold as other fish. I'm sure that would be something that you might notice if you were diving or snorkeling as opposed to actually just fishing. That would be my assumption there. But I've never snorkeled with these guys, so I have no experience of my own. And then another really cool bit of research. These two scientists did a paired study. One came out in 2004 and one in 2005. And the first one looked at just, does the amount of light affect the feeding intensity of the larval stage of these guys? So they are daytime predators. They're out during the day when it is light out. So it's a relatively logical assumption that light is important, so they can see their prey with it, right? And so they did a cool study where they just said, okay, we're going to change and have really low light and then levels in between and then really high light and see if that changes how well these fish feed. And the answer is yes, it does.
Okay.
So at really low light levels, they're not very good at finding food.
Interesting.
They're not as good.
Because I know I've seen posts of anglers on like the Fishbrain app where they are catching them at night, but I mean, definitely way less of a frequency than the daytime fishing, for sure.
Yep, and so your anecdotal evidence from fishermen definitely corroborates the scientific study, so that's great. Woohoo! And then the second study that these guys did, so once they figured that out, that light does matter, I don't think that was particularly surprising, but how much does it matter?
Yeah.
So if you have these juveniles and it tends to be darker over a longer period of time, if they survive, do those ones that had lower light grow up to be as healthy as the other ones? And the answer to that is no. So that initial kind of first 5 days, or however, maybe not 5 days, okay, however long the first initial is from when they start feeding, it actually doesn't take very long for that to have permanent adverse effects on the individual,
Interesting.
which is really interesting.
So it's all about how they first get going. Just,
which is pretty cool because, I mean, I just think that's just an interesting thing.
It's just like, human development. They have all these radio commercials here about the California first 5. It's like the first 5 years, you got to do this, this, and this for your kids. So I guess it makes sense that, every animal kind of has that crucial period right when they get started that things can go one way or the other.
Yes, and I would think that food would probably be a big one for most things. You kind of need it.
Very cool. All righty. Well, that's a few interesting facts to take with me when I target my new species here. Very cool.
Yeah, and you'll have to post some of those photos when you catch them. I'm sure you're going to catch the record.
I definitely will post any photos I get, especially if it's a record.
Awesome. And I don't have anything else this time. So any last final thoughts?
Well, all you fellow fish nerds out there, especially you guys that aren't familiar with California fishes, definitely just check these fish out on the web. Really cool fish. They look so awesome to me. I don't know what it is. I mean, I love all fish and they are all very interesting to me, but something about the way this fish looks is just real striking to me. Like I would love to have one of these in an aquarium or something just because they look so freaking cool.
All right, well, there you have it. This is the spotted sand bass. We're all going to go Google it and appreciate its splendor.
Right on. Well, thank you once again, Doc. It's been a pleasure, as always, and I look forward to our next jaunt into Fish of the Day.
I also look forward to it, and if any of the fans out there have a recommendation, you can always holler at Josh or me on the Fish Nerds Facebook page.
That's a mouthful.
That is.
Awesome. All right. Well, I will see you next go around, Doc.
All right. Take it easy.
All right. See ya.
This episode of the Fish Nerds is brought to you by you, our listeners, over at patreon.com. If you want to support this podcast, please help us crowdfund it. Go to patreon.com/fishnerds. Give us $1 an episode, $4 a month, and you'll be our very, very best friend. If you give us $2 an episode, that's $8 a month. I'll give you a Fish Nerds Hoorag. If you give us $5 an episode, you get a Fish Nerds hat. If you give us $25 an episode, you can be a Fish Nerds Patreon sponsor, like our friend Rich Collins. Rich Collins owns Thirst Productions, and he does website SEO marketing and website development, and he can help get your podcast or your website high ranking in Google. So check him out at thirstproductions.com. Also, our friend Josh Lopes gives it that number, and he is a tax guy. So go to lopestax.com if you're in Massachusetts and ask Josh to help you with your taxes. So anyway, crowdfund our show by going to patreon.com/fishnerds. We really need your money. Helps us a lot. And it may someday put our kids through college. That seems unlikely. But anyway, thank you so much. All right. And I'm here with my daughters, Zoe and Sammy. Zoe is 11 years old. Sammy is 8 years old. And they're going to do selected readings from Wally Pleasant's book. So without further ado, here are Zoe and Sam with 101 oyster jokes.
What did the oyster have for lunch? Abalone sandwich. What was the oyster's favorite fairy tale? Goldilocks and the Three Barracudas. How did the oyster get tickets to the Dolphins game? He bought them from a scalloper. What did the oyster do when he became deaf? He got a hearing aid. What do you call an oyster that holds a baby octopus for ransom? A squid napper.
All right, what do you think of those jokes?
I think the first one is funny, the second one's funny, and the fourth one's funny, but I don't know about the others. I like those. They're all funny, except for one that I don't get at all, the scalloper. Yeah, me too. I don't get that one either.
Okay, thank you, girls.
Bye. Thank you.
If you want to hear the first Wally Pleasant release in more than 10 years, if you think miracles can still happen, if you like America, please contribute today. You were talking about bass earlier? I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
What's your feeling about eating bass? Do you think...
Well, yeah, so bass are delicious. It's super delicious. A lot of bass fishermen will not eat them. There's entire Facebook groups called Don't Eat Bass. But up in Michigan and New Hampshire, bass are technically an invasive species. They're from the southern United States, Tennessee and Florida and all those kind of countries, all the states down there, and they are brought up here just to be caught by fishermen.
Okay.
And so as a non-native species, not a big deal to eat them, and they're delicious. They're just yummy, a nice white flaky meat. I like them just pan-seared and blackened. But I don't eat them very often because when I post photos of me cooking fish bass, I get a lot of bad emails. And yeah, bass fishermen and PETA people are the same.
Yeah, I started thinking about it a few years ago when I saw the movie Napoleon Dynamite, and he said, "I caught you a delicious bass," and then I thought, well, do people eat bass?
People do. Yeah,
I guess so. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're really, really good. And the funny thing about bass, Wally, is bass are not in the bass family; they're in the sunfish family. So they're close cousins to your bluegill, your pumpkin seeds, rock bass, smallmouth bass, crappies are all in the same family of fishes. But bass are not in the bass family of fishes. They're not a bass.
Oh.
They're a sunfish.
They seem more athletic than sunfish and crappie.
Right. They're like if a sunfish was like a basketball player.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
They're definitely, and they're bigger and bullies. I mean, not basketball, more like football, like really bulls.
Right.
Yeah.
They're juicing.
Yeah, they're totally juicing. But they're great. They're fun to catch. And without them, what would we do? We'd just be talking about trout all the time. And who wants to eat trout?
Yeah, and you're anti-trout. That's amazing. I'm going to remember that.
Yeah, I mean, I ate one a couple months ago this winter, and I was just really sad that I killed it because it just tasted so bad.
Now, what about steelhead, which is, just a bigger version, but kind of the meat is kind of more salmon-y.
Yeah, no, so I don't love salmon. Yeah. So although salmon season opens for us Sunday, which will be 3 days ago when this is released. So we're going to be, this podcast came out Wednesday. So yeah, and I'll be keeping a salmon this week and eating one and seeing if I like it. So far though, I don't love salmon. Overrated. I don't know. I'm funny about fish. So.
And they travel thousands of miles just to have sex and die. Is that what salmon do?
Well, so your Pacific salmon, like your Chinooks and your silvers and your kings, they do that for sure. But your Atlantic salmon, which you guys have in Michigan and we have out here in New Hampshire, they can spawn and then head back to their waters and then head back to spawn again. They can repeat the process a few times.
Okay.
So your true salmon, like your Chinooks, die. Your Atlantic salmon don't. We have Atlantic salmon here in New Hampshire. I think in Huron, where you guys are, you got everything. I think they threw Chinooks in your lake years ago, but they're not native.
Huh. Yeah, I really in Michigan, it's kind of interesting. The Lake Michigan side is the big touristy side. We get a lot of people from Chicago that have vacation homes there, and it's like really crowded. And also the beaches are really sandy. The Huron side of the state is rocky, and it kind of feels like you got that whole coastline to yourself. It's really quite cool. And then you go 50 miles across the lake, and there's a whole other country. It's kind of interesting too.
Yeah, it's funny. I've never been in the middle of the country. I don't understand why people would be that far from the ocean, so I never go inland that far. It seems strange to me. Someday I'm going to get out your way and check out that world, because I hear it's a different planet of people, different planet of fishing, and those big lakes are really appealing in a lot of ways. But I grew up my dad was in the Coast Guard, so I grew up on both coasts. And so I get nervous when I go too far inland.
I see, yeah.
It's bizarre to me.
Yeah, Michigan is an interesting state because there's always a destination. You go north, there's the Upper Peninsula. It's gorgeous up there. Then you go east or west, you got a Great Lake. And then south, you got the whole rest of the country. And but did you do fishing with your dad when he was in the Coast Guard at all?
Yeah, I grew up fishing all over California, Washington, New Jersey, New York.
Wow.
Yeah, but never on fresh water until I moved to New Hampshire, and now I just fish fresh water. So I'm prepped up. I'm ready to go. I should go do it. Now Michigan's like a big dead end, right? It's a peninsula.
Yeah.
So like, do odd people funnel up to Michigan from the south, and they get stuck there and they can't get out?
Well, there's a big bridge that goes from the upper to the lower peninsula, and then when you look at the map, really the Upper Peninsula should technically be Wisconsin. Mm-hmm. What happened was Michigan and Ohio almost went to war over, they both wanted to have Toledo. And
who wants Toledo? No one wanted Toledo. That's weird.
Exactly. They both wanted it, and then the federal government intervened, and then they said, okay, Ohio can have Toledo, but we're going to give Michigan the Upper Peninsula.
The Yoopers.
Yeah.
The Yoopers. Now, it's good that you didn't become Wisconsin, because your accent would be wacky. Then it would just be hard to hang out. So.
Yeah, I think there is the certain Great Lakes accent where we're a little harder on the R's there.
Yeah, I don't hear it in your voice, but I do know what you're talking about. All right. Hey, we got a caller calling in with a Stump the Fish Nerds question. You got a few more minutes?
Oh, absolutely.
So Reed from Minnesota called in. He called 607-378-FISH. That's the Fish Nerds hotline. 607-378-FISH.
Hi, Clay. This is Reed from Minnesota. I've got a question. I want to know what happens to the carp, the common carp, in the middle of winter. I ice fish lakes deep and shallow, all over the water column. Every body of water I fish in has common carp, and yet I never catch one in the winter. I never hear of anybody catching one in the winter. I've never seen it. What do they do? Where do they go? I haven't picked up piles of them on my flasher or anything. So I'm just curious about that. Please tell me.
So I did a little research
what's going on
common carp, and you're going to like this, Wally.
Mm-hmm.
Because you drink, right?
I drink?
Yeah, you're a drinker. You're an alcoholic, right?
Is it that obvious?
It's so obvious. But I've done a little bit of research on the carp and what happens to their metabolism. And here's the interesting thing about carp and everything in the minnow family, but carp especially and goldfish, is when they're on the ice for a long time, it gets really cold. The oxygen level drops, and their body actually changes, and so they become basically alcoholics under the ice. They become drunk. So scientists discovered how goldfish and their wild ilk survive months of winter in frozen over lakes in the water. The answer is alcohol, the cause of and solution to all of life's problems. There aren't many vertebrates that can survive without oxygen. However, goldfish and their relatives like carp share a genetic mutation that allows them to anaerobically convert excess lactic acid into ethanol and flush it in their lungs. So their lactic acid turns to alcohol. They flush it over their lungs, and they get drunk for the winter. That's how carp spend the winter. They just blast
I never realized how awesome it is to be a carp.
They make their own alcohol. It's only a few fish can do this. And that's why they're not eating a lot. They're just basically numbing their brains for the months of winter until it warms up and they can start eating again. And so you don't catch a lot of carp through the ice. You see them, but they're usually swimming sideways and crashing a lot. They're making bad choices. They have a really hard time saying the right things. A lot of them get divorced over the winter, all because of the lactic acid turning into alcohol.
They would be easy to spear, though.
That's right. Yeah, and you can. Oh, yeah, because they're just laying there, right? They're just going, "Oh, I don't feel so good."
But then people might be calling up and saying, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't talk about spearing a carp."
That's so wrong. No, people do spear. No one loves carp, so you can say whatever you want about carp.
Okay.
And it's one of the few. Like if you said horrible things about trout, like they don't taste good, you'll get letters. Or if you say it's okay to eat bass, you'll get emails. But if you say kill carp and throw them on the shore and let the birds eat them, people are like, yeah, that's cool. Do that. Not a problem. Because no one likes a drunk, Wally. That's the problem.
Yeah.
The other part of his question was, can you catch them ice fishing? The answer is yes. People catch them all the time ice fishing. I'll put a link at fishnerds.com to an in-fisherman magazine of ice fishing for carp. But I think the state record in Massachusetts was caught through the ice last winter. And they caught this huge carp, too big for the ice fishing hole. The fisherman had to reach down the hole, grab it by its gills, and hold on while someone got a chainsaw and cut a bigger hole in the ice to land it. So they can catch carp through the ice.
Wow.
Have you caught a carp before?
No, I don't think I have ever caught a carp. You were talking about fish under the ice and made me think of this video I saw one time just recently. It was a lake in Upper Michigan, and under the ice it looked like a shark. It was like 8 feet long, swimming around, and it was a sturgeon.
Oh yes.
That's very prehistoric looking, or shark-like in that angle. But I know they're not, actually shark.
Well, they're not that far apart given the evolution. Like the sharks are like old, they haven't changed much. Neither have sturgeon. Really cool fish. I've never seen a sturgeon in real life. It's one of my dream fish. Now I know in Minnesota Wisconsin they spear for them, and I always feel a little bad when I see a sturgeon getting killed. I'm always like, oh, I don't know how I feel about that.
Yeah, because they live for like 120 years or something.
And they do, and they're so cool and weird looking. But yeah, people spear them and they eat them, and a lot of the people love the caviar from them. Have you had caviar?
I believe so. I've had the roe that they put on sushi a lot, but I don't think that's sturgeon. But yeah,
it's gross.
Yeah, it's kind of an acquired taste, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, acquired taste means gross. That's what that means.
Is the meat of a sturgeon? Is it like real beefy, like swordfish or shark or something?
My assumption is it is, but I've never had it, so I don't know. Yeah, but it's so shark-like. I'd imagine it has that kind of sweet, meaty shark flavor. Mm-hmm. But who knows? I've never done it.
Wow.
I've never done it. Who's playing music right now?
Let me see. It's kind of anticlimactic, but I don't know.
Perfect. It's such a strange interview, Wally. I'm sorry.
I'm really thankful that I was kind of in a tight spot because I'm not really technically advanced, and I saw the thing you sent me. I'm thinking, oh, there's no way in heck I could do this, and then I asked my girlfriend. She said she could, but then she made plans to come here. So this worked out way better than I even had planned it having a great time.
Yeah, and for those for listeners, Wally and I were talking at like 4 this morning on Facebook, and we planned this whole thing. So we really didn't put a lot of thought into like what we were going to do and how we were going to do it. It was really like, you want to do this, and we're like, let's do it. And then here we are. So it was kind of last minute, and we're here to promote your Kickstarter campaign for your new album. What's it called?
It's called Happy Hour. There's a song on it called Happy Hour as well, so I guess that would be the title track. Fancy music lingo.
Very, very clever. And you can support that by just go to fishners.com and click in the show notes, and you'll find a link to the Kickstarter campaign so you can support Wally's new big record, make him famous, well-deserved, and check out the rest of his music. I was on Spotify today. You're all over Spotify. You're all over the place, and your website. People can get custom music made at your website. So you'll do songs for people.
Oh yeah, I was mentioning that earlier. The one about the currently working on one for a guy that wanted a song written for his friend, and it's really mean spirited. And one of the things that the guy said was that he's a big Guess Who fan. So I was going to do a parody of These Eyes, but this guy that has diabetes. That's mostly what he wants me to write about, how he has diabetes. That's so ripe for humor.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, this guy, he's going to get his foot sawed off, and it just that's awful. Yeah.
And he also says the phrase "truth be told" like almost before every sentence.
Well, anyone who says that a lot deserves to be made fun of. They have no choice. So you got no option after that. That's really cool. And that's wallypleasant.com. Is that your website?
Yes. And also the Facebook, where there's a couple sites on there too.
Yeah. And you're easy to get hold of and easy to find. And people should check out your music. We'll put links up, of course, at fishners.com everywhere. And Wally, I seriously want to talk about, I'm coming up on my 200th episode of the podcast here in about a month. And I want a new theme song for the show. So I want to work with you to put something together, because I think that if anyone is the perfect writer for this, you're the person. So we can come up with something, hopefully.
I think that would be perfect. I might charge you a chartered fishing trip when I'm in New Hampshire.
Do it. I just bought a brand new fishing boat this week. I haven't got it yet. And
that'd be awesome.
We're actually recording our 200th show on my new pontoon boat. So if you ever get out here, I'd love to get you out fishing. And you can even stay at my house if you want to.
That'd be awesome. And pontoon boats are great for playing music on.
That's right.
Stable.
15 years ago, my wife bought me a guitar. She says, "What do you want for your graduation?" I said, "I want a guitar and I want lessons." So she bought me a guitar, and I never learned how to play it because she didn't get me lessons to go along with.
Oh, she didn't follow through at all.
I know, story of my life.
I just thought of another fish story. I don't know if we're probably bouncing around a lot, so I don't know if we could. I went on a chartered fishing boat in Florida one time, and we all of a sudden, like, somebody caught a shark, and everybody's like, "Stop the presses, a shark, oh my God." And everybody's getting their camera out, and then somebody else caught a shark, and it wasn't quite as exciting, and then I caught a shark, and they weren't like bull sharks or tiger sharks, or they were nurse sharks, which kind of look like catfish a little bit.
Yeah, they're beautiful.
And they're kind of cool.
Well, Wally, do you have any kids?
And then the guy in the boat said, "I do. I have a 13-year-old and a 17-year-old, and I've taken them fishing. My parents live in a condo, and there's ponds around there, so it's really great."
So the reason I was asking if you have any kids is because having kids is a lot like shark fishing. And I'm going to tell you why.
Like shark fishing?
Yeah, just like shark. So the first shark you catch is really exciting, right? Like you said, you're in Florida, your friend caught that nurse shark, everyone got really excited.
Oh, yeah.
First kid, really exciting. Second kid, Third kid, who's the third kid? Like no one even knows the kid's name. Sharks are the same way. The first one's really exciting. The second one's like, okay. Third one, who cares? So just the same, no difference.
Good analogy.
Yes, perfect.
Oh, another shark.
Oh, yeah.
Going in.
Way to go.
Yeah.
Look at who's having babies. Perfect.
Excellent analogy.
Yeah, I just thought of that.
Oh, I was just. The guy in the boat said we could have the sharks that we were catching mounted, and it would cost like some ungodly amount of money, like $2,000 a foot or something. I don't know. I'm exaggerating, but it was really expensive. And I was thinking, I've never seen a mounted nurse shark anywhere. That would probably not be the.
No,
but not have that part in there because I kind of.
But maybe you should mount a nurse shark. You know what you got to do is you got to go and catch fish that no one gives a shit about, and just mount those fish.
Oh yeah, and have a museum.
A museum.
Who gives a shit taxidermy.
I love the name of that. Who gives a shit taxidermy? What a great business name. Yep,
for sure.
There's another pumpkin seed. Yep. Got another minnow up there. Yep. That's perfect. Who gives a shit taxidermy? Carp. Yep. So that's it. You've listened to a bunch of fish nerds when you should have been fishing.
Okay. So we'd like to thank you.
All right.
We'd like to thank you for supporting Wally Podcast.
Wow.
Is that?
For supporting us while we podcast. I've been drinking bourbon out of a glass this whole time. So like, I started off sober, I ended wacky. All right.
I had a great time. We'd like to thank you while we podcast. We'd like to thank you, family and friends, while we podcast, doing stuff that's really fucking cool.
Right on.
Let me see. I'm gonna grab a pen.
Make it up, Wally. Just make it up. You're fine.
Okay.
None of this matters. It's okay.
We'd like to thank you while we podcast.
For supporting us.
Okay. We'd like to thank you for supporting us while we podcast, and our family and friends need help too because we have problems and we're trying to work it out. Have a great night.
It's perfect. Special thanks to Doc Martin and Fish Guy Josh for the Fish of the Day segment. Huge thanks to Wally Pleasant for joining us. Please support his Kickstarter campaign. Head to fishnerds.com and when you're clicking through, think, here, have some money, because it's nice to be nice. Head to fishnerds.com. Check out the show notes for all the links.
Until next time, follow the code of the Fish Nerds. Spawn early and often. Never trust a free lunch with strings attached. And swim against the current every chance you get.
Perfect. You made a podcast, Wally.
Whoa! All right.
Now we're done.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Clay. I had a great time. You'll make a cream puff out of this train wreck here.
We'll do what we can. So, hey, thank you so much, and I'm super happy to have met you, Wally. It's honestly like I'm a huge fan, and it's always so weird meeting people who I've been listening to music for years. It's great. And it's one of the best things about making the podcast is meeting people like you. So I appreciate it.
Thank you, Clay. I really appreciate it. And we'll talk more about the song for the show.
Yeah.